Welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records in alphabetical order like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. I'm very excited about today's episode. We are doing a real firecracker of an album today. We are looking at Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young's Deja Vu. Here's a little sampler of what this album sounds like.
Teach your children well. Almost cut my hair. Leave us helpless, helpless, helpless.
And that's just side one. I'm not doing any of those side one songs. I'm doing this side one song. Oh boy, I'm doing Woodstock. This song was not written by Crosby, Stills, Nash, or Young. It was written by Joni Mitchell.
I wrote a little song for my friends to sing and for myself to sing as well, and it's called Woodstock.
This song was the B-side to Big Yellow Taxi.
Hey paradise, put up a parking lot.
So really I'm sort of sneaking in some love for Joni Mitchell in today's episode, which is very exciting.
Now, I'm over here assuming that everybody already knows what Woodstock is, but in case you don't, Woodstock was a music festival held during August 15th to 18th, 1969 on Max Yasgur's dairy farm in Bethel, New York.
One of these pop festivals that they've been having around the world lately.
It attracted over 400,000 attendees, 32 acts performed outside despite sporadic rain, and it was one of the largest music festivals in history. The festival has become widely regarded as a pivotal moment in popular music history, as well as a defining event for the counterculture generation, and its significance was reinforced by a 1970 documentary film, an accompanying soundtrack, and a song written by Joni Mitchell that became a major hit for Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. And Wikipedia said it, so it must be true.
Ironically, Joni Mitchell was not able to go to Woodstock herself, although, as I understand it, she was invited, but her manager said it will be more advantageous to you in your career if you appear on the Dick Cavett show instead of going to Woodstock. So she wrote this song based on what was relayed to her by her then boyfriend Graham Nash while she was sitting in a hotel room watching televised coverage of the festival.
I stayed home in New York and I watched it on television all day and saw everybody there playing and singing and...
Oh, that's so heartbreaking. Having said that, David Crosby said that although she wasn't there, she probably captured it better than anybody else who had been there. So there are sort of two things that I would like to talk about today. The first is that I think this song is anthemic. So I want to talk about why I think this song is such an icon. The second thing that I want to talk about is why I think this version is the superior version. Not only by comparison against Joni's version, but like everybody has covered this song. I think that this is the best version of this song. Let's get stuck in. Obviously I wasn't at Woodstock, but when I was about 14 years old I was obsessed with Woodstock. This is when we still had video stores that you could go and rent videos from, and at least once a month I would rent the Woodstock DVD. Much to my parents' chagrin, they would make me watch it on the family computer as opposed to the DVD player because I could just go away and put headphones on and they wouldn't have to listen. I think that this song is an icon because it captures so many different things with only, I think, 3 verses and a chorus. And the thing that it captures is what I imagine the 60s are like, what the 60s look like in my brain. I'm gonna do something a little bit unusual this time, something I don't usually do, and that is talk about the lyrics. The lyrics are the main thing that Joni's version and the Crosby, Stills, Nash version have in common, obviously. It's within the lyrics that I think we find the 60s. For example, we cover the hippie counterculture in lyrics about getting back to the land, rock and roll, get back to the land, set my soul free, I've come to lose my smog, and I feel myself a cog in something turning. We are stardust. We are golden. We are billion-year-old carbon. And we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. In that I think you've got idealism, back to the land movements, collectivism, it's a big we, a royal we chorus. And then there's the sort of acid-laced imagery of being part of the interconnected nature of the universe and existence. We're stardust, we're carbon, we're a tiny part of a very complex universe. It is us and we are it and all of that. I love the lyrics to this chorus. They make me feel very small in the best way possible. We've got the reference to Vietnam here. And I dreamed I saw up above a jet... No, that's not the line at all. And I dreamed I saw the bomber jet planes riding shotgun in the sky, turning into butterflies above our nation. So there's this sort of re-envisioning of a symbol of war, right in the thick of a war, being turned into a symbol of peace and nature and freedom. I love that imagery as well. I mean, we'll get to, not to spoil it, but obviously at this stage, we're gonna get to Joni and we're gonna break down her beautiful wordsmithing. We've got the people, we've got their ethos, we've got their drugs, we've got their rock and roll, we've got their soundtrack. So I feel like the song really just draws a picture of a people, of a subculture. At the same time, it talks about their cultural backdrop of Vietnam. And then the last element of the song that is fascinating is that it's also a document of an actual event as it was occurring. It's got a documentary element to it. By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere was a song and a celebration. Like, this was a historical event. This was an enormous group of people all assembled in one place, not fighting with each other, not causing any sort of damage apart from littering, which definitely I think we should count as a form of damage. You know, generally nobody got hurt, except maybe the people who took the brown acid. It was just unheard of, especially when you compare it to Altamont, which happened I think a little bit later and was an absolute disaster. Rolling Stones couldn't pull it off. Maybe that's just what happens when you get the Hells Angels involved. So this song is also extremely self-referential in that it forms part of the culture that it's describing. I really believe that it's difficult to do that well in a way that isn't overwhelmingly self-conscious. I think the song really straddles that line beautifully. Okay, now I want to look at why this version I think is the superior version. And in order to do that, I think we have to compare it against Joni's. So here's a little bit of what Joni's version sounds like.
We are stardust, we are golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
No disrespect to Joni, she has a very beautiful voice and it's a lovely melody. However, it kind of sounds like it's sung by somebody who missed Woodstock.
It was really a nice festival, I guess, from the looks of everything.
It's somber, it's sort of meditative, it's almost morose, sparse and solemn, cerebral. I'm gonna hit you with just a few more adjectives before we move on. It's like an academic appraisal of an event, as opposed to a lived experience of said event. There's like a darkness to it. Even the backing vocals are a little bit dark. That sort of betrays what I feel is the ethos of the song. Which brings me to the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young
Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, etc., etc.
version. This version is loud, it's rambunctious, it's alive, it has been to Woodstock. Not literally, they didn't perform this at Woodstock, but they were there. So it's like she gifted them the soundtrack to an experience that they had and she didn't.
I kind of got left behind.
Given how full of life and how big this version is, I actually feel that this version embodies the feeling of the song and the feeling of the 60s, and indeed an end chapter to the 60s, because this was, I think Woodstock was August of 1969, so very tail end of the 60s. A lot had happened in the previous 9 years. This version of this song captures that, nails it. So let's check it out musically. This song opens with loud snarling guitars, obnoxiously overdriven. Then the bass comes in, some drums, little organ, some more guitars, and some bluesy singing. Immediately, this is rock and roll. This is the music of this generation, or the white people of this generation, largely. But this is the music of the hippie subculture. It feels, you know, it's loud, it's rebellious, it's got some bluesy undertones. More importantly, It's got a groove. Joni's version doesn't have any sort of rhythmic basis, any rhythmic foundation. The rhythmic foundation is 90% of this song for me. Maybe 70%. There's a lot of stuff going on here. From the get-go, this song goes That makes no sense out of context. You see that groove? I'm doing my best to translate sound into a visual. Am I getting it? Sort of struts along. But also the way that Stephen Stills is singing this song, it also imbues it with rhythmic cadence. So whereas Joni sings the first line like this,
I came upon a child of God. He was walking along the road.
Stephen Stills sings the first line of the song like this. From a rhythmic perspective, that goes, well, I came upon a child of God. He was walking along the road, and I asked him, tell me where are you going? This he told me. So he's syncopating it, even the way that he's enunciating, walking along the road. He's using the consonants as percussion instruments, walking along. A very rhythmic approach. His cadence, everything about it is rhythm, is groove. And I think that's what this song needs, honestly. All right, let's talk about the chorus. I think the chorus of the song is really important. It's a part of the song where the pronouns being used by Stephen Stills go from singular to plural. The first verse is, I came upon a child of God. I asked him where he was going. This he told me. So he's talking to someone else, but the song is told from the perspective of the first person. When we get to the chorus, it's first person plural. We are stardust. We are golden. We are billion-year-old carbon, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. We're talking about a collective, like a group, a big group, a community of people. And this is what happens at this part of the song. Backing vocals. Everyone. And that lift at the end, garden, it's so uplifting because everyone is harmonizing and coming up. They're sort of swooping up together. It's like you're being lifted up. The chorus is a literal chorus of people backing up Stephen Stills at this point. And from there on out, the other voices are in the song. They've done a sort of genius thing in the production of the song as well. A thing that I really love, the layering, because this song doesn't have a middle eight. It's got a very straightforward structure. It's got verses and it's got choruses. They mostly follow the same structure as Joni's. They add a solo and I think they add another chorus. However, the first verse, it's not empty, but it is just Stephen Stills. Then everyone comes in together at the chorus. The second verse, we have some understated backing vocals, but they're there. The last verse, we've got a solid harmony being introduced by Graham Nash. On top of that, Stephen Stills isn't singing the melody of every verse exactly the same way. He's giving every line the time and respect and attention that it deserves. So every single line of the song tells a different story. Here's what I mean about the verses sounding different. Here's verse 1. Oh, piano. Here's verse 2. Backing vocals. Here's the last verse. By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere was a song and a celebration. Fantastic harmony singing by Graham Nash there. God, he has a lot of power in the upper reaches of his vocals. The backing vocals in the second verse are great because they're all syncopated, which is what I mean about the song having a groove. There is so much syncopation in the guitar parts and the bass parts and the drums and the backing vocals. Every time there's an opportunity for something to groove hard, they take it. They run at it with open arms. I'll show you what I mean. Verse 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. basically none of that comes in on the downbeat. Ooh, which makes it groove. I just want to play the harmony on Garden at the chorus again because it's just delightful. Again on the offbeats. Here's what I mean about those offbeats again. 1, 2, 3, and we got to get ourselves. So it's coming in on all the offbeats. What a great song. It just makes you feel so good. Okay, last thing I want to say about the chorus. There's a drop right before everything drops out. And then when everything comes back in, especially that first verse where you don't know that there are backing vocals coming, if you've never heard it before, you just get slapped across the face with them because everything drops out. You think Stephen Stills is coming back. It's Stephen Stills and all of his friends, sucker.
We are stars.
Yeah, did you catch that? Everyone drops out and there, bam! There they are, right in your face. I also like how this song fades out, so it doesn't sound like the party ends. It sounds like it just sort of wanders off into the sunset. The party's still in full swing, it's just passing you by. Goodbye, hippies! Goodbye! Enjoy your trips! So the last thing that I find about this version of the song and what makes it very special is that Crosby, Stills, and Nash were there.
This is our second gig.
This is the second time we've ever played in front of people, man. We're scared shitless.
So when they sing it in their version, they are specifically singing about their own experience. I did touch on this earlier. So it sort of comes into its own a lot more when it is sung by people who had just a few months ago been on that stage singing in front of those 500,000 people, and everywhere was a song and a celebration. They were part of that. They were part of creating that song and that celebration. That feeling of togetherness and oneness and connection with the universe. Like, that is their personal experience as opposed to something that was relayed to them by someone who was there and that you saw through a television screen.
It's one that I didn't really get to go to.
Man, I really feel for Joni because it sounds like Woodstock was a really good time. As a footnote, David Crosby, a couple of years before he died, so a few years ago, I think 2018 or 2019, put out an album called Here If You Listen with a ragtag band of jazz kids. Do you like the assonance in that sentence? Because I'm quite proud of it, and it was off the cuff. They just made beautiful music together. They did a cover of this song. Crosby was always a vocal fan of Joni Mitchell's music throughout his life. Oh, I've just realized I forgot to put this up here the whole episode. Pretend this has been here the whole time. So he did a version of this song when he was in his, I guess, late 70s with all these 30-somethings. I guess they were in their 30s at the time. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. It's really beautiful because it's sort of a cross between Joni's version and Crosby, Stills, and Nash's version in that it borrows the solemnness of Joni Mitchell's version, but the attention to harmony from the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version. So here's a little bit of what that sounds like.
We are stardust, golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
I just think it's gorgeous, and I'm really glad that he got to revisit this and assign new life to it. That's cool. That's it from me. If you would like to support any of the things that I do, be it talking about my records or painting or writing music or making music videos where I wear 2.5 meter DIY wings. They took me 2 weeks to make those. If you feel so compelled, you are welcome to make a donation to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I'll put a link in the description below, but no pressure, only if you feel like it. Thank you very much to everybody who has made a donation. I put it almost always towards buying more records so that I can do more of this, so thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend!